thanks for joining in. Um, what I'll be doing the next, let's say, 20 minutes is go a little bit deeper into the CSRD. So, what is it about? What's the impact on businesses? But maybe also getting a little bit more deeper into the topic. How do you start getting ready for this? So, CSRD stands for Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And the CSRD is one of the many initiatives coming from the EU Green Deal. Um, I hope everybody has heard about the EU Green Deal, but that's really the ambition for Europe to become net zero emissions by 2050. So that means every single business in the EU, every single company, school needs to bring down their emissions to zero, which is a really big thing to do. So in order to, on the one side, help companies get there, but on the other side, force them a bit, they have come with the CSRD legislation. So today you will hear a lot of abbreviations. I'm trying to make sense of it. So when you hear it, it's not like, oh my God, what is this? So the main thing is the CSRD, and it's coming from the sustainable finance part of the EU Green Deal. The EU Green Deal has about 12 different topics, and one of them is this one. And then actually from the CSRD, you get the ESRS, and that's actually the metrics that you need to start reporting on. So the CSRD is the overarching system that you need to comply to, but then the ESRS, they're setting really the reporting requirements. So reporting on use of plastics, reporting on human rights. So all those specific topics, they come from the ESRS. Then a little bit about the timeline, because this is where it gets really tricky for a lot of companies. Because actually it starts already reporting next year, but about the book year of 2024. So for any company that is public listed but already does NFRD, you need to already start collecting all your data this year to report next year. And then the year after, it's the large companies. The year after, it's the listed SMEs, so small, medium enterprises. And then the good to know, everybody who does business in Europe or has a European subsidiary, whether you're listed in America or in Australia, those companies also need to start complying with CSRD. And that's really important because I've spoken to a lot of people from outside of the EU. They're like, oh, who's not impacting my business? Yes, it will definitely impact your business. So there's a lot to learn from what the European companies are doing. And then it's about meeting 3 criteria. And you need to meet 2 out of 3, and then you need to start reporting. So it's the employees, the revenue, and then the total balance sheet. For the non-EU companies, that's a little bit different. So it will be more the bigger companies. But still, in Europe, it's about 50,000 companies that will need to report. In the US, it will be approximately 10,000 businesses. So it will definitely impact there as well. And then I just want to mention the other words people are talking a lot about, the CSDDD. What's that? Yeah, it's complicated. What's actually happening, I will tell you more about it. So the CSRD is about logging and analyzing what you're doing. What is your impact? The CSDD is about what are you doing to mitigate it? So what's your action plan to reduce your impact on the environment? So it's like the rescue plan. So that's why it comes a little bit later, because of course, first you need to know what your impact is, what are your topics, but then with the CSDDD, they will start asking you, okay, now you know what's material, what are you doing about it? So that's the next thing coming. So what are topics you need to start reporting on? It's a lot on climate change, of course, including with the carbon and the scopes, but it's also on circularity, biodiversity, water, and that's just the environmental part. There's also a lot on human rights, child labor. So it's really a mix of people and planet. What's interesting to know, 72% of businesses, they have not even heard of CSRD, and that's in Europe. That's really scary because most of them need to be ready in 1 or 2 years, which means you need to have all your data collected. You need to have done your materiality assessment. And then it's only actually 17% that actually know also about the requirements and that have started the process. So it's really, that will be quite tricky in the next 2 years. So you heard me say the word materiality, and that's a word that will come often with CSRD. And materiality is actually finding out for your business what are the material topics? Because you can start reporting on like 1200 data points, but that's really administration that nobody wants. So they are asking you as a business, please first find out what's material for you, and that's what you need to report on. So material can be within the environment, within social governance, and already here you see all the ESR rules. So depending on what your material topics are, they are setting standards and data for you to report on. So there's a lot of help. But of course, there will also be some cross-cutting standard with general disclosure. So that's available for everybody. So that is really complex, and they're helping you. But the big challenge will be, how will you find out your materiality? Because here we have a lot of cleaning companies. We as a supplier don't want to answer 10,000 or 50,000 surveys. But what about all the cleaning companies doing it by themselves? So I think in the next year, it will be very important for all the branch organizations or similar businesses to really help each other. So that's one of the things we're doing at Essity, trying to find out, for instance, for cleaning companies and distributors of disposables, what would be our suggestion, what's material for you. So to give you a head start, so we don't all need to start from scratch. And then it's not only materiality. What's really new with the CSRD is the double materiality. So that means that you look at the impact your business has on the environment. So far, so good. But what's also included is, what's then the impact of sustainability on your future business? Will the climate change prevent you from getting your ingredients? Will people moving away from cities impact your employee base? Will government requirements add cost to your business? So this means that you have to look at both sides of the materiality. It also means that your sustainability report needs to be included in your financial report. So that's really something that we've already started, but it's not two separate things anymore. So this is really something that's quite new. So how do you get to know what's material for your business? The first step is to really look at your business, analyze what are my main processes. Am I making products? Am I distributing a lot of products? Am I having my own production? Am I a company that is impacting waste? So what is really the core of your business, and how does that work in this double materiality? The second thing is to identify your stakeholders. What do my customers feel is my impact? What do my suppliers, what is their impact? So it's not just about you as a company, but you have to do the stakeholder mapping as well. And that can get quite complex. Is it your investors? What do they think is important to them? The third part is to evaluate. So you're actually mapping them. What's material for my business, and what's the material for the stakeholders? What's material for the environment, and what's material for my finances? And then you plot that in a matrix. And I will show you an example, because it's quite a lot of work. And then if you consolidate that, I'll show you this is an example of what we did for Essity. So this you can find in our sustainability report. And this is also something that we're trying then to do for the cleaning companies and for the wholesalers of disposables, show them a starting point. So you can see here environmental topics, social topics, and this grid is actually what's most material. So this way you can also look at, where do I really need to start reporting, but where do I also need to start investing? So this is called a double materiality assessment. And again, you can find this in our materials, but it's a first step. But this is where you need to be in 1 year time. If you're reporting this year, you should have done it last year. But if you're reporting in 2026, you need to do this now, because you need to start collecting the data next year already. So this is really a big step. But you're not alone. There's a lot of help. And I think that's really also what I wanted to share. It seems like a daunting exercise, all this data. But there is a lot you can do. There is all these, I would say, guidelines or guidance that can help you do all these different steps. So it's really important to make use of it. It's through the eFrag. You can just download them, and this is a big help for you. But I think what's really important is, for many companies, start setting responsibilities. Who is responsible for collecting this data? Where does it sit in your organization? I've seen businesses that put it with somebody in customer service or with a controlling department. But with this, it touches so many parts of your business. It needs to be integrated actually in your strategy. So your CFO needs to own this. Your CEO will be personally responsible for this. So do you have that in the right place? And do people in your organization actually know they're responsible for this? Are you setting targets and goals for them? And the second one is gathering this information. So what are your suppliers doing? Use examples from others. Use our knowledge to help you, but also, what kind of data can you provide to me? And that also brings you to the evaluation of your data quality. One of the big things with CSRD is that your report needs to be third-party verified. So this will be a huge market for all these kind of consultancy companies. That's a big model for them. But you cannot just use your own data. It has to be verified. And in order to do that, the data you get also needs to be verified. So can you trust the data you have? Can you trust data you get? Are they third party? Are they objective? So that's really about data quality. And again, you need somebody responsible for that, because somebody in customer service, can they really assess if a certification on recycled or virgin fiber is valid, or is it an own invented certification? So do they have the expertise to judge it? And then lastly, but this is really where I feel a lot of companies are struggling, is where do I keep all that data? I need to push a button and get this data. Maybe if you have more than 1,000 suppliers, they will give you all this data. Where will you store it? How do you keep it up to date? So actually the whole software and data maintenance is a huge part of this. And there are not many software systems around that are yet capable of doing it. So if you're really starting this journey, then it's very important to look at also the technical solutions to make life easier, because your customers will ask you for reports for their CSRD reports as well. So especially I think for the wholesalers in this industry and the FSC companies, this is really going to be a big administration. So you need also the people in order to do that. So are you then ready for CSRD? Have you set a plan? Have you set responsibilities? This is also where we really want, yeah, it's not really a wake-up call, but it is this is really coming. You can't go around it. The fines will be really big, that they will have a fine decision on the fines, I think in 2 or 3 months, but it goes to 1% of your net sales if you're not on time with your reporting, or if you don't have a third party validated. So this also has really implications for your business. And that's already my speech. I didn't want to make it too long, so there's some room for questions.
Great presentation. With regards to all the 1,200 data points that needs to be submitted, how practical is that for the EU to be actually looking into that? I mean, do you think there's a plan for anyone to actually go through those data points and verify that?
Yeah, I think that's what they're really working on with this third-party verification. So the EU will not do that. They will give standards to all the consultants, like the Ernst & Youngs, like the McKinseys, and they trust them to validate that you've chosen the right materiality. So it's these 1,200 data points are not everything you do, but they have said, for instance, if you are big in distribution, then it's of course about the emissions of your trucks. So one data point is, do you have are you using diesel trucks or is it electric trucks? How much? And so they have set all these data points, but they're expecting these consultants to make sure that if trucks or if distribution is material, that you have filled in all the data points. The trick will be, of course, is the data right? And that's where the third party has a lot of work. I do think it will take about 2 or 3 years to also see the evolution, because now you're just saying this is what I do. And then you will see, is it good or bad? How does this impact my scopes? So it's a lot of data points. I think on average, a company will look at around 300-400, unless you're like us, producing and distributing and buying, then you have a lot of data points. But they have defined them. But the big trick is, can they actually handle all that data? Yeah, very valid question. Thank you.